Hello, lads and lasses. Hey, if you like today's lesson, then form a K-pop group. Then I want you to make questionable music professing your love for art, as this would really help spread the good word of my class. All right, today we're going to talk about art criticism. And so I want you to copy this down, write down art criticism at the top of your page, then write art criticism and aesthetic judgment. This next part is in white, so you don't have to copy this down. Oh, by the way, there's going to be a lot of notes today, but this is one of the wordiest PowerPoints that I'm going to give you guys, but that's okay. You can do it. Just think of it as getting ready for college, because in college you take a lot of notes. All right. A lot of people think that the word criticism means that you don't like something. And then while that's certainly true, but in art, the word criticism means that you are judging the successful and unsuccessful parts of a work of art. And art criticism can be fun. Art criticism is one of my favorite parts about art. I love talking about art, and so I use art criticism to discuss art with people. And when I think about a work of art, I go through the art criticism process, which I'm about to teach you guys today. All right, I do want you to write this down. This is a 4-step process. All right, the first step of art criticism is called description. So write this down. It's all in green. There's a lot to write, but it's okay. You can do it. I think of it as I'm getting you guys ready for college, because when you get to college, there's a lot of taking notes. So go ahead and write this down. All right, it asks the question, what do I see? It's the easiest step of art criticism. And during this step, you only give the facts. And again, if it's taking you longer to write this down as I'm going through this, you can pause the video and then copy it down and then unpause the video and come back. You do not include opinions about the artwork during this step. And I'm going to give examples of all this in just a minute. You give as many details as you have time for. And then I know this is a bit wordy, but it's important. I want you to write this down. Pretend that you are describing a work of art to a friend over the phone. Describe it so they can see with their mind what you see with your eyes. And I know in this day and age of cell phones having cameras on them, you can just easily take a picture of it, send it to a friend. But imagine that the camera app on your phone is busted for some reason, and you would describe it over the phone to them so they can imagine it. Okay, once you copy this down, then we'll move on. Okay, so let me describe this picture. All right, so this is a painting, and it is a painting of a woman and a child. And the child is sitting on the woman's lap. Both the woman and the child are looking down. Both the woman and the child have fair skin and dark hair. And the woman is wearing a dress that has stripes on it. The stripes look like they are white and lavender and green stripes. And they are vertical stripes that go down the dress. The child has her feet in a basin of water, and the basin is white with a pink rim around it. And the woman has one arm around the child, and the other arm or the hand is touching the foot. And in the lower right-hand corner, there's a picture, a white picture. It looks like a flower painted on it. In the background, it looks like there's a green wallpaper or maybe some green furniture that has a floral print on it. And then on the floor is a reddish carpet with green squares that has a floral print on it. All right, so what I have just done was describe the picture. So, as somebody who was not looking at the picture could easily imagine how I described it. Notice that I didn't say mother and daughter. All right, that's not a fact. We don't know that that's a mother and daughter. Well, and I'll come back to this in just in a couple more steps. But right now, you're just giving the facts. Yes, both the woman and the child have fair skin and dark hair, and they're in an intimate moment. But we're not giving opinions yet. All right, do you understand description? All right, I'm going to move on to analysis. So copy all of this down on this slide. Analysis is the second step of art criticism. It asks the question, how is the artwork organized? In this section, you discuss the composition of the work of art. WOA is shorthand for a work of art. You can abbreviate that. You're going to discuss the elements and the principles used in the artwork. And then, yes, I know this is wordy, but it's very important that you write it down. So go ahead and copy this down. Discuss how the artist used line, shape, form, space, color, value, texture, rhythm, movement, proportion, variety, emphasis, unity, and harmony. Now, you don't have to discuss all of those elements and principles, just the ones that apply. I'm going to move on. If you still need to copy down the notes, you can pause the video. So in this painting right here, let me talk about the composition of the work of art. There is a strong diagonal movement in this work of art, and that's done with the stripes on the woman's dress. And your eye kind of focuses on the two heads first. Then that's called contrast. When you have two things that are different from each other, it's called contrast. So the black hair and the fair skin, so it's black and white that are next to each other, creates a contrast. And so that's, typically the first thing that somebody would look at when looking at this painting is the area where the heads are, because that has contrast that attracts the eye. And then so if you're looking at this area here first, then the eye is the directional elements, the stripes that are in the dress, the lines cause the eye to go into the lower right-hand corner. And then the upward shape of this basin right here makes the eye go back into the composition. So it touches then on the feet, the arms, and back up here. And you just kind of do this kind of movement around here. This is a very well composed picture that way. All right. And also, hey, hi guys, how you doing? All right. The cleaning crew is in my classroom cleaning up, so I'm going to keep on talking. The other thing that is interesting about this picture is that it has like the greens in the background and the greens on the carpet, and then the reds on the carpet. Green and red are opposite colors on the color wheel. So that also creates a contrast in the picture. So there I have just discussed the composition of the picture. I talked about the directional element, which is line. I talked about the contrast of the light and the dark. And so those are the elements that to me stand out in this picture. I also discussed the contrast of colors that are also, so I talked about line and value and color in this composition. So that is analysis. That's the second step of art criticism. All right, I'm going to move on. I want everybody to copy this down. So write down interpretation. It's the third step of art criticism. It asks the question, what is the artist trying to say? And what is the meaning of the artwork? You will try to explain the meaning of the artwork in this step. And it's the most fun step of art criticism. You can be as creative or imaginative with your response as long as you back it up with the facts. And you ask the question, is there a deeper meaning behind the obvious one? Is there more to it than meets the eye? So I'm going to move on. If you need to spend time copying this down, go ahead and pause the video and then unpause when you're ready to listen to me interpret the painting. So I said earlier that it's a woman and a child. And I believe that this is a mother and daughter. And there's a couple of reasons. So like when you give an opinion, you have to back it up with the facts that are in the picture. So there's several reasons why I think this is a mother and a daughter. One reason is they look very similar. I mentioned before the pale skin and the dark hair. All right. So they look like they could be related. Another reason why I think it's a mother and a daughter is because of the activity that they're doing. The woman is bathing the child. And so that is a very typical thing for a mom to do of a kid of that age. Another thing that makes me think of that this is a mother and a daughter is by how gentle the woman is being. So yes, like it's almost like a very loving kind of embrace that's right here. And if I could interject some things into this, like this reminds me of several things. Um, One thing is it reminds me of when my daughters were little, when they were like 3 or 4, the age of this girl right here. This would be a very similar scene in my house. My wife would be bathing the kids, not in a basin like this, but in the tub. And so when kids are little, they can't bathe themselves. So you would sit there and bathe them, wash them, and make sure that they're clean. So this reminds me of things that have happened in my house when my girls were smaller. Another thing that this makes me think of is like when I look at the facial expressions on the mother and the daughter, I would imagine that the story behind this is that the girl had a bad day at preschool. Some kids were bullying her, maybe, and she just had a big cry, and the mom is trying to make her feel better. And so the somber mood of this kind of lends itself to a storyline that might be something along like that. Have you heard now how interpretation is different than analysis and description? With description, I described it. With interpretation or with the analysis, I talked about the composition. And then with interpretation, I talk about my opinions of this and the story that might be behind it or the meaning that's in here. And the strong feeling that I get from this painting is love, a mother's love for a daughter. And that is the emotion that I see oozing out of this painting. Okay, the last step, or the fourth step of art criticism, is called judgment. Sometimes it's called evaluation. And in this part, I want you to ask the question, is this a successful work of art? Now, I want you to copy this down. So, what is your personal response to the artwork? Know the difference between your personal feelings and the public value of a work of art. It is possible to like a bad work of art and to dislike a good one. And to give you guys an example, I love movies, and some of my favorite movies are the bad movies. And there's this TV show called Mystery Science Theater 3000, and they make fun of bad movies, and it's so much fun to watch. And so I really learned how to love bad movies. And it's like they show the bad movies, and you can see the silhouette of the guy and his two robots, and they're just cracking jokes about the bad movie. And that's what makes it fun. Bad movies are fun. And so with art, a lot of people like bad art, like there's these things called Velvet Elvis paintings. And Velvet Elvis paintings are horrible works of art, but people love them. Here's a guy, he bought a Velvet Elvis painting, and he's showing it off. Dogs playing poker. This is bad art, but a lot of people love dogs playing poker paintings. So it is very possible to like bad works of art. On the flip side, it's also possible to dislike a good work of art. For example, every year they have the Oscars and they decide what the best work or what the best movie of the year is. And quite often, once it's decided what the best movie of the year is, that's not a movie that I like. That's not a movie I want to see. I like movies with spaceships and explosions and car chases and lasers and comedy and stuff like that. And that's not always what makes the best picture. And the best picture is usually something that's, like a dreary drama or, and it just doesn't hold any interest for me. So and I know that it's a good movie. It has good reviews. It's just not something that I want to see. So it's possible to like a good work of art, or to like a bad work of art. It's also possible to dislike a good work of art. All right, so let's finish on this. With judgment, you are judging the design quality, you're going to judge the originality, and you're going to judge the craftsmanship and the artist's skill. So once you um, finish writing this, copying this down, you can unpause and then listen to me judge this work of art. All right, so in this is a good work of art, and I'm going to say that because it has a good composition. I talked about the composition, how it draws your vision in, your attention in here, and guides your eye down, and it guides your eye all throughout the painting. And it's a good work of art because there's a strong feeling to it. there's like an emotion that's attached to this. So for those reasons, oh, and the other reason is it's well painted. This artist, Mary Cassatt, she is an established painter back in the 1870s, and the people look realistic, and the skin tones look well done, and the proportions of the body are well done. It took a lot of skill to make this painting. So this is a good work of art. Now, my opinion of this work of art is this: even though it's a good work of art, I don't particularly like it. A painting like this would be more appealing to, I think, girls than it would be for boys. And because it has this, it's about a mother and a daughter. And then the other thing, I wish it would have lasers and spaceships and car chases and explosions, and or manly emotions instead of womanly emotions. But that's just my own opinion. And it's okay for you to like it if you want to, and it's okay for you to not like it if you don't want to. But please understand that this is a good work of art whether you like it or not. So those were the 4 steps of art criticism. And so I hope you could hear the difference between description when I described the artwork, and analysis when I talked about the composition, and then interpretation where I talked about the meaning of it, and then finally with judgment where I decided whether it was good or not. And also, I want your judgment to be based on the things that you discussed earlier. A lot of people will look at a painting and then do their judgment first. Oh, that painting sucks, or oh, that's a cool painting. So please stop and think about a work of art instead of coming to a judgment within the first couple of seconds of looking at a work of art. All right, so I want to move on. There's 3 different philosophies of art criticism, and this is one of them. Please write this down. Imitationalism. And a person that's an imitationalist, they believe that the best works of art are the most realistic. And this is most people. Most people are impressed with realistic artworks. So I'm going to show you this right here. This is a sculpture. This is a photograph of a sculpture by Dwayne Hansen. Dwayne Hansen is a sculptor, and he makes these realistic looking sculptures. So where would you see, first of all, let's go back and describe this picture. Like, what is in the sculpture? What is this a sculpture of? And some of my students might say, well, it's a sculpture of a guy. Good. It's a sculpture of a guy. What is he doing? Looks like he's sleeping. Where do you think he might be? And by the look of his clothes, it looks like he might be on vacation. He might be going to vacation, coming back from vacation. He might be at the airport. He might be at a train station. Looks like he's worn out from traveling. Those are the kind of things that you can discuss with this work of art, but it looks realistic. This is a bronze sculpture. It is made out of metal, and it is painted to look realistic. So here is the sculpture in the gallery. So you can see all the paintings that are on the wall, the famous paintings, and then the sculpture sitting on the ground looks like a guy brought his luggage into the art museum and fell asleep with his luggage. And then Dwayne Hansen did a variation of the sculpture, and this sculpture is inside of the Orlando airport, and it's on display, and it shows the weary traveler, and I think that's a perfect place to display the sculpture. And here's another one of Dwayne Hansen's sculptures. It's a guy who's painting the walls, and you can imagine walking into a museum gallery and seeing this with the paint on the wall, and the guy, it looks like they're not finished getting ready for the art show, but it is the art show. And I think that's a funny play on art. All right, I want to show you another guy, Richard Estes. He paints. This is a painting. This is not a photograph. Well, it's a photograph of a painting, but this is a painting. And I've seen some Richard Estes artworks, and when you get up close, you can see the paint strokes. But when you look at it from far away, it really looks like a photograph. and his almost all of his paintings look like this. They are all of the like a downtown area, and what Richard Estes likes to paint is reflections in windows. So almost every single one of his paintings has a reflective window where you can see, the reflections of the city. All right, and I want you to write that term down. This down there. It says trompe l'oeil, and it's a French term that means fool the eye realism. And artists like artists that like to paint realistically, sometimes they like to trick the audience. For example, the picture that's on the left is a painting that's on a wall. And it's painted on a wall to make it look like there's a shelf in the wall that's holding a potted plant. But there is no potted plant, there is no shelf. It's just a painting on the wall to make it look fancy. On the right, it looks like a drawing of a bull on a piece of paper attached to wood, but it's not. It's a painting of a bull drawn on paper attached to a block of wood. That is not a paper. It is painting to make it look like the paper is really there. And so sometimes artists will, kind of have fun with that fool the eye realism. So, this is a sidewalk or a path, and it's drawn with chalk or painted to make it look like there's waterfalls coming in from the side. But it's really just a path that people can walk on. And then here's one. This one, like, I really noticed it when I was looking for these images. This is a painting on the side of a wall. And what freaked me out is I realized that that woman in the red shirt or man in the red shirt, I don't know who it is not there. It's painted there. And it fooled me. I thought it was a person walking next to the building looking inside, but it's not. And if you look really close down at the bottom and you follow this line, and it goes right under there. And like this angled just a little bit up. So it looks like a person is walking next to the building with the big hole in it, but it's not. It's painted to look like there is. And you can see the shadow on there. And I was wondering, like, how is this person standing next to the building to make it look like the shadow is right there? And then it hit me that that's not a person, that's a painting of a person. This one fooled me. Anyways, that's fool your eye realism, trompe l'oeil. All right, and then the second philosophy of art is emotionalism, and these are the people that believe that the most important part of an artwork is the mood or idea that it communicates. These people say, you know, big deal. You can paint realistically. So can a Xerox machine. You can like you're just a camera. Like all you're doing is you're a slave to the camera. But an emotionalist likes to have some kind of emotion to it. They say that realistic art, there's no point to it if it doesn't have an emotion with it. So, for example, an emotionalist would have really loved the painting that we just discussed. It had a strong emotion with it, that of motherly love. And then I've talked about this one earlier in the year. This painting has a lot of emotion in it. These men are swearing their allegiance to Rome as they go off to war. These women, I can't tell if they're sisters or their wives, but they are overcome with grief thinking about their men going off to war and possibly dying. And so there's a lot of emotion. There's a heroic emotion over here, and then there's a sad emotion over here. Ivan Albright is an artist I like a lot, and his paintings are grotesque. Look at this woman. And I don't know if it's hard to tell what she's doing because it's such a dark image. It's the dark background and the really dark shadows. That's kind of how Ivan Albright paints. But she is looking in a mirror. She's holding a mirror and looking at it. And then in this hand, she has a little device that's used to put on like a powder. Basically, what she's doing, she's putting on makeup. She's putting on makeup and looking in the mirror, trying to make herself look beautiful. But she's not beautiful. This is a very, very grotesque looking person with all the lumps that are in the leg And also the other thing that makes this grotesque is like the skin tone. It's very grayish and the harsh shadows. This is not a very pleasant view or not very pleasant lighting for making somebody look pretty. And so there's a really grotesque feeling that jumps off of this painting. And then this one right here, when I ask my students, what kind of feelings do you get from this? I get a lot of like pain and hopelessness. And so this artist painted this head really giant, and it's a copy of this head. And that's not very realistic. This boy, it looks like he's sitting in the middle of all this junk or trash, and it could be like a war, or it could be that he's in an impoverished neighborhood or an impoverished country. I can't tell what this is. Maybe like oil tanks over here, so it may be in an industrial part of town. And then the giant floating head here expresses a lot of emotion. He's crying out. He's angry. He's despondent. He's scared. And this painting has a lot of feeling in it. I love this sculpture right here. It's a Gaul killing himself and his wife, and it has a lot of emotion in that. And then one of my all-time favorite artists is Edward Hopper. And in almost every one of his paintings, it just has this overwhelming feeling of loneliness, because it's very typical of Edward Hopper to have these diner scenes with only like one or two people in them. And then not only do emotionists like art that has an emotion to it, but they also like art that has an idea with it. So this painting is one of my favorites, and it's called Nude Descending a Staircase. So it's a naked lady walking down the stairs. And sometimes when I ask my students, can you see the naked lady? Sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. But you can definitely see the stairs down here. If you look down here, there's stairs. And this, all right, so what makes this drawing or this painting interesting is that it is not like a snapshot of a naked lady walking down the stairs. It is the whole time that she's walking down the stairs, from the time that she starts at the top of the stairs to when she finishes at the bottom of the stairs. So it's almost like a time lapse. And this was painted in the 1920s. So before there were special effects, before film was a big thing, that these artists called the futurists were thinking about the fourth dimension, which was time, and they did artworks that tried to show time. So if you look here, if you look at this area right here, that kind of looks like a head. And if you look at this area right here, that kind of looks like a torso. And if you look at this area right here, that kind of looks like a hips. And if you look at, there's the arm, and there'll be another arm over here. And if you look down here, there's the leg, and there's the other leg. Can you begin to see that woman now, the nude descending a staircase? So if you look at the hip, there's other hips that are going up here. And if you look at the head, there's other heads that are going up here. And if you look at the legs, you can see the swishy, like back and forth movement of the legs as it goes up. You can see more stairs back here and up here. All right. And then finally, the last theory of art criticism is called formalism. And these are the people that they don't care if it's realistic or not. They don't care if it has an emotion or not. It just has to look good. It has to use the elements and the principles and be pretty to look at. And that's where you get abstract art from. If you look at this painting here on the left, like, what is that a painting of? I'm not sure, but it's one of my favorite paintings because I love all the colors that are in it and the way that the colors like blend into each other. And it's almost like it reminds me of like a river going around like a rock or something. And then on the right side, sometimes my students can figure out what this is, but these are leaves. And you typically think of leaves as either being green if they're on the tree or brown if they've fallen off the tree. But I rarely ever see like deep purple leaves or pink leaves. But what makes this painting interesting is like there's very interesting shading on it. These shapes are very interesting, and it's a good looking painting because of the shapes and the colors that are in it. It doesn't have to be realistic. It doesn't have to mean anything. It's just pretty to look at. And that, again, that's where abstract art comes from. Artists are just putting down colors that they like, that go well together, shapes that they like that go well together. And a lot of times people will buy abstract art for their house just because they want to add color in the house, or they want to add colors that match the furniture. So, the blues on this match the blues in the furniture, and the oranges on this match the oranges that are here. And this woman right here, she's not realistic. It has a little bit of a mood, but not much. But what I love about this painting is like the curves that you can see in here, like the forms, and how the dress and the hat really look like they're going around the person. And I love this painting a lot. And then once again, abstract art, is just pretty to look at. So, and I was talking about these three philosophies of art: the imitationalists who love realistic art, and the emotionalists who like emotional art, and the formalists who like formal art. Most people, again, love realistic art. A lot of people will like emotional art, and then some people like uh, the formal art. I love all three. I can find things that I like and dislike in all those sections, or all those philosophies. All right, so that's it for today, and I hope you enjoyed something. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you learned something. And I'll see you next time, guys. Bye.